So this is 1 year with my Trueno. I can't believe 1 year has passed. Last April in 2024 is when I got this car, and sure enough, it's been quite an adventure. And I'm gonna break down just what it was like for me to experience this car in every asset as far as daily driving it, at least the times that I did. Weekend drives, mountain roads, took this thing on a road trip. I've been to the track and have been tracking it since. And just every, if you will, joy and nuance with this car, because, you know, after spending some time in it, there are some little things that you learn as you go. Differences, likes, dislikes, when you compare to different cars and whatnot. But overall, I'll give you my breakdown as to what that is. And I've done quite a bit in a year. This year really flew by, and before I knew it, I'm like, oh wow, okay. And it still feels slightly surreal, just because this is my first new car, and I've never owned a car from 0 miles on. So I've had quite a bit of impression with it, and you know, there are things along the way that I wish, okay, maybe this could have been different if I were to nitpick. And I'll express all of those things. I'm going to compare this car from stock to modded as to where it's at now. And I'll compare it in the sense of when I took it to the track. I drove this thing completely stock, and I thought it was a really well-made machine for the price point. I think you get a lot of sports car for starting under $30,000. Obviously, this particular trim isn't under that, but I think for what you get as a base, you can do quite a bit with it. But this particular model, this trim, I think being that it's a 40th anniversary Trueno edition, and what they brought to you, I think is pretty well balanced. I've never had a car with the brakes that it has, the Brembo brakes. I think it's plenty for how light this car is, 2,800 pounds. I feel the car is very well balanced with the Sachs dampers, made it to its spring rate. I think it's very comfortable for the street, comfortable enough for someone to daily it, but also I think it's more than enough for handling really well. It's very nimble. It responds very well when you enter a turn, and then you take it in that track setting. I think it does really well for stock. And then there's just its overall inputs. You get a lot of feedback through the steering wheel. The car is pretty balanced for what it is. And again, for under $30,000, you get quite a bit of car for its power to weight, how it handles, and just overall experience. It's a really enjoyable car to experience, as whether you daily this car, whether it's your weekend car, whether it's your track car, drift car, whatever you plan to do with it. I think there's a lot of fun to be had. So with that said, the stock car did really well. I think for most people that have never tracked their car before, you're going to get a lot of car, and you have a lot of room to grow into it, because there's a lot that this car can teach you. Now, coming from other cars and have tracked other vehicles, driven other vehicles, I have a little bit more experience with variations of different types of cars and platforms. So for what this is, I'm really pleased with it. But when you want to take it to a competitive level, let's say time attack, for example, that's where you need to tweak a few things. When I drove the car, as soon as you get towards the limit, you're definitely limited by tire, but you're also very much limited by camber. And what I mean by that is, once you start pushing the car at the limit, this car definitely has a tendency to want to rotate into the turn, almost at will if you want. But once you start pushing it to the tire limit, it understeers, which was really interesting to feel. But then I realized, as soon as I changed the camber with this setup, and really all I did was Petters top hats, front camber bolts, and rear lower control arms, the car transformed, and it handled night and day difference from stock to where it's at now. And even with the stock tires, the car does want to rotate and enter the turn feeling much more confident than I did before, because when you do hit that threshold and you feel that understeer, you're like, okay, I need to like force it to rotate in. At least with my driving style, I prefer it to rotate into the turn. So little differences, and that really was not an expensive upgrade. And then with my tire combo setup for track was just wheels and tires, and that made a night and day difference. I'm going to go ahead and include that information in the description if you're interested in seeing my exact breakdown of my track. Not only track setup, but track impressions. But honestly, I'm really happy with it. So I've done 3 events thus far at this point of this with this car, and I'm participating in 8.6 Cup. I've only done 1 so far, but the first 2 track days was really to do a base shakedown and baseline just to see what the car can do, and then I did a post track day with the alignment, the track alignment bits, the wheels, the tires, and then also I added a large capacity pan, which I am testing with Formula Delta. And you can also, if you want more details on that, that's something I think some of you that are willing to take your car to the track and want to do it more often, more consistent, that's your solution to mitigating oil pressure drops. And go ahead and check that out. I'll add that in the description as well. So what did I expect when I first tracked this car? I thought it was going to do really well. I thought it had plenty of power for what it is. It's not too much to where it overwhelms you, but you can definitely floor it and not get overwhelmed by tire spin. You can rotate and chuck the car into the turn. It'll definitely respond to your feedback. The brakes are very potent, and overall it's very balanced. So it doesn't overwhelm you with any one particular input. It just does everything really well, very cohesively, and it just transitions from one to the next. You know, get off power onto brakes, steer. It just does everything really well. With the mods that I've done after the fact, I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew that it would allow more confidence into the turns. That's what I was anticipating, and sure enough, that's what it did. And how that did it was basically just by allowing more contact patch to the floor when you add that camber, so that when the suspension's compressed, when you're in the turn, you're in the lean, that's when you're getting the most amount of grip. And that's what I mean by confidence inspiring. And so it actually surpassed my expectations with that, because it just made me see how very little as far as spending to make the car behave a certain way. I didn't spend that much at all. It was just very minimal tweaks, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. And the way I had set it up was to be competitive in 8.6 Cup. Now, if you're not familiar with 8.6 Cup, they basically are a time attack group here in Southern California, and they have different classes. They have stock class, which is exactly what it sounds like. Then they have street, which allows for more mods, and then so on and so forth. And you get to the point to where you can do heavy aero weight reduction, and then unlimited class is like anything your dreams and desires can imagine. You can go full on with that setup. So they have tiers, and it makes it friendly competition for you to go to the track, set your best time, and then you meet other like-minded people. Everybody's really chill. Everyone's down to earth. A lot of camaraderie there. And they are just great people. No one's out there to judge you. No one cares if it's your first time or your 20th time. Everybody opens their arms and welcomes you. Along the way, I did have some issues with one thing in particular. So with having to test this oil pan, I actually did have to get an oil pressure sensor. I did have to get a harness to pull CAN data from this car, because everything runs off of CAN as far as data coming from the ECU, all of your vitals of this car. And I had a kit by N6 Auto. Everything worked well after I installed it. First track day, no issues. Second track day, I ran into some connectivity issues. Now, I don't really know exactly what happened as far as, was it a little bit of wiring? Was it installed a certain way because they had to pin the connector or whatnot? Either way, N6 had really good service. I sent it back to him. He gave me a diagnosis of it. He honestly didn't find anything wrong with it, but I think what it came down to, at least from what I can understand, it may have been something to do with the connector. But anyway, went ahead and solved that problem. I have a new one on it, and it's being sent back, so we're going to see how that goes. But otherwise, outside of that, haven't had any real hiccups as far as when I modified this car. And if for some reason you are that person that does want to, maybe you're testing something completely different, or maybe you do want to get oil pressure readouts, that's one of the companies you can go with. There are many others out there, and honestly, I'm not going to say one thing or another. I think either way, it's better to have oil pressure readouts than nothing. So that's all I'm going to say about that. As far as tracking your car, would I recommend it? 100%. I think if you're willing to experience your car in that setting, whether it's learn car control, add to your skill sets, develop your own driver skill, maybe you want to find the limits of your car in a safe manner, I think there's so much to have to gain in that scenario, to where even if you're not just trying to be fast, you just become a better driver by being safer and just more aware. There are things that you learn out there that you just aren't taught when you get your driver's license. And I think it's definitely worth it. Now, what I'm planning to do at this point forward, currently, I set up my car to run stock class, but because I'm doing testing with Formula Delta, I chose a different set of tires. Now, instead of getting extra set of wheels in addition to what I already have, extra set of tires, I just figured, let me just run through these set of tires, the Continental Extreme Contact Forces that I'm currently running for track on my 17x8s, and finish this season, even though I'm not competitive in street class because of that particular 200 tread wear, it bumped me up. Now, the reason I'm not competitive in that class is because these other guys are running coilovers, they're running really wide tires, they're running, sway bars and just a bunch of extra bits that I just don't have, and that wasn't my intention. But at the same time, I'm still learning the car, and I'm still learning the courses with this car, so I figured once those tires are done at the end of the season, before next, I'm going to go with the Champiro tires that are sponsored for stock class, and then go ahead and become competitive. Everyone is running the SX2 Champiro tire, and it's equivalent to this Michelin PS4. It's around a 300 treadwear tire. It's nothing special. It's just meant to make it all equal so that there's more driver competition. And then at that point, this car will be more competitive. But either way, I figured it's better to go to a sticky tire and then step down. That way, you're just lowering your thresholds. You're like, okay, I know where the limit's at. Let me just control it here. Versus going from the other way around. When you step up to a stickier tire, there's a bigger learning curve. There's more to learn. Again, it doesn't mean it's a bad approach. It just means that I went backwards. And I only did it backwards because of this particular oil pan. I decided I'd rather opt out to get the oil pan first rather than compete without the oil pan. So just my mind, the way my mind approached this scenario. Plus, I'm contributing to getting this oil pan out to the public even sooner. So I figured, why not just help the community? Let's just get this out there to you guys. And I figured more of you like me would appreciate that. So as far as driving this car on the road, let's just start with overall drivability. I think driving it every day is comfortable. It passes the passenger princess test. My girlfriend told me, from the past, some cars are too loud, some cars are too uncomfortable. These bucket seats hurt when you try to get in and out. You can't hear because you can't hear the radio. You can't hear each other speaking to one another. Because you can't carry a conversation when your exhaust is too loud or the diff is whining too loud or whatever. So it's all my cars are a little different. But when it came to this, just being relatively stock, even now it's still pretty stock, considering just the very few things I've done. I still have the comforts of a stock car. It's not loud. I still haven't put an exhaust on it. I plan to, but even then it's not going to be too much. Outside of that, I can still hear and carry a conversation inside the car without getting road noise. So overall, I'm comfortable with it. But there are a few things with it. you know, as time goes on, you start to see things. So last summer, I completely PPF'd this car, and I did a full body PPF. So front to back, I knew I was going to drive it. I knew I was going to track it. I knew it's going to need that protection because these newer cars, their paint and clear coat is not that great. So the extra protection was really necessary. And what I discovered was it did its job. From the first track day and onwards, you know, I was able to clean the car and see areas where the PPF did its job. I was able to see an area on the, so I have a layer on the windshield that's protecting the windshield, and it prevented possible really big rock chip, if not spidering. And those are just little things that in the long run would definitely destroy your windshield. I don't know if you could see it. It's right here. It's this little kind of blemish there, but either way, there's just, you know, little areas where you can see that it caught rock chips. Same with the front bumper. There's just areas where you can see there's a slight dimple in the actual PPF. It's going to be hard to see. The car is white, it's a clear surface, but I can see how it's protecting it, aside from all the other stuff, like other people's rubber hitting the car from the track day, other debris and stuff. When I'm in the canyon roads, if I'm in a really bad road that has a lot of debris, you can hear that the rocks showering on your car from the car in front of you, just kicking up rocks and stuff. It's really protecting it, so I'm happy with that. I think that was worth the investment, especially since I want to keep it. But then there's little things, like if you get into the small grooves, there's little areas where dirt gets caught. Let's see if I can catch some areas here. There's just little pockets where you can see maybe a little bit of dirt and grime just kind of builds up on the edge. But honestly, I'm not complaining. I'd rather have that than areas where the paint is already missing, because I definitely would have paint missing if that were the case already, because of how I drive and where I drive it. So I think the PPF overall is holding up. At some point, I also tinted the windows at the same time. Summer's coming again. I'm definitely happy about that. But it's not too dark to where I can't see at night, and also not get pulled over. That was a big thing. I'm really happy with that window tint. So PPF is holding up well. So since the year, or over the year's time, I've acquired 2 more sets of wheels. I have my dedicated track wheels that are 17 by 8. I have these OEM wheels that are here, and then I also have my 17-inch base wheels, and I use those to drift around. If you haven't seen those car control videos, I have a whole other folder just for that. I can also include that in the description below. And really just to bounce from one wheel to the other. You know, when you're drifting and doing stuff like that, you burn up tires pretty bad, you can chip the wheels and whatnot. You go to the track, same concept, but it's exposed to a lot more danger, I guess, as far as getting scuffed and chipped and dinged and hit by other stuff. So that's why I wanted extra sets of wheels. Even the stock wheels, I mean, considering what I've done so far, they've held up pretty well, but one of these wheels, I'm not sure which one it is because I do rotate them and I forget, but you know, one track day, that's all it took. I got a pretty good scratch in there from something that hit it pretty hard, and it just, you know, chipped away some of the paint. It's not too big of a issue to where, like, let's just say you're walking by it, you're not going to notice it, so it's not that apparent and that obvious, but it's my car, I know where it is. When I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, there's a chip. But otherwise, for the most part, I like the fact that I have multiple sets of wheels, and for that reason, you know, my track wheels will get beat up pretty over time. They'll be exposed to further abuse, and that's okay. I'd rather have that happen to those wheels than my OEMs, because at least I can throw these OEM wheels back on, the 18s, and you know, take it to Cars and Coffee or something, or a car show or whatever, and it's clean. It's already in good shape. Versus my drift wheels that are just beat to hell. So those are just things that I've noticed that I liked. And interchanging between the wheels, you know, I went ahead and ceramic coated these wheels. I haven't uploaded that one yet, but I'm gonna show that as well. I went ahead and did the same with my track wheels, only because, you know, all the brake dust, all the other rubber, all the other grime. I already did a track day in the rain. Like, it's just all the environmental elements that's being exposed to these wheels and just car, period. It will take its toll. So I just took it a little step further to keep those little items protected. One thing I want to point out is that when you add a decent amount of camber while driving straight, depending on what kind of grooves you're on, driving on freeway, street, I've noticed, especially on the highway at speeds, because of the way the tires are making contact with the floor, it definitely wants to pull you into the grooves depending on which way you're going. So I have to actively counteract the steering as I'm on the road. But other than that, that's just one thing I've noticed that have changed since my alignment and since I've done this aggressive stance on it. But just something to keep in mind. Your drivability as far as how straight and how smooth the car is over roads can change when you add more camber. Let's go to the interior. So far, I mean, it still looks pretty new. I mean, I'm sure you can see it. There's not a whole lot to say about the inside right now, but there are a few little things I want to mention. I think when it comes to just, you know, the materials in here, I think a lot of you already know that there's a lot of plastic in here. It's not the best. So at some point you will be exposed to more wear and tear. But since I don't drive this car every single day, it's not the biggest issue. But I did notice, you know, little things like, if you can see it, there's some blemish on that handle just from, you know, grabbing it and moving the seat forward and trying to get to the back. Let's see if I can show you back here as well. There's little things, and it's actually probably the other side, but little wear just from, you know, when I fold the seats down, I put some stuff in here. There's a light amount of scuff. I think there's a little bit more on that side, but it is what it is. And because I do use this car, I've gone on a road trip. Whenever I go to the track, I load it up with equipment and stuff just to be safe, rather than sorry. I just want to be prepared, but you know, the interior will take its toll, and it is what it is. That's just part of it. Like I mentioned, blemishes, and it's very small, like you can barely see it. Light scuffing on the steering wheel, but you know, it's like, where did it come from? How did it happen? Who knows? I don't know. But it's just, that's what it is. And again, it's so minute, it's very small, like only I know where it is. I think for the most part, considering it's only a year, and again, I don't drive it that much, I'm right around 7,500 miles. But you know, it's the littlest things, light scuffs. Contact areas, maybe you drag your feet across, you can see that this little kick panel is exposed to your shoes or whatever that you're dragging across, so maybe that might get scuffed up. Little things like that. A little bit of wear on the side of the seats, moving it back and forth, stuffing stuff in there, taking it out, things like that. I mean, it's very minute, but again, it's not a big deal. On the ceiling of the car, same thing. When I'm trying to throw stuff back there and trying to make it squeeze past like that little arm there, I never take that off. My GoPro mount is always on, but you know, you hit the ceiling, there's sometimes you get like marks and whatnot. And it's just, I'm just sharing because that's my experience. I'm not complaining about it. There's just little things that I've noticed that happens. And that's just part of it. I mean, that's wear and tear. That's just use of the car. I use my trunk quite a bit. You can see the all-weather mat. It's doing its job. It's got scuffs and scratches, and it had dirt and mud and rain because the last track day I did was pretty wet. But you know, I just took it out, shook it, wiped it down, threw it back in. It's doing its job. Again, it's better than ruining the material that's in this trunk. You know, it's better than chewing this, I don't even know what you'd call it, that material, like a carpet-like material, but again, it's doing its job. Same with those all-weather floor mats. So after driving this car for a year, I've noticed there are little creaks and rattles that happen in the interior. I can't tell you exactly where, I just know that it's somewhere in the dash. Little bits, whether it's inside, whether it's maybe the glove box, maybe it's just, when the door's closed, maybe it's slightly touching another panel. I don't know, to be honest with you, but that's what I've noticed, and, it is what it is. It's just the nature of a car that's aging. Especially with the way that I drive it, other than the mountain roads, I take it to the track. I drive it pretty hard, probably more aggressive than most. And you're just going to be exposed to more NVH, so it is what it is. On top of the car not really being great with sound deadening, that wasn't really the intention of this car, but again, that's just what I've noticed. So NVH is a thing, sure. But it is what it is. It's not a big deal. It's just one of those things. Just kind of anticipate that. But other than that, for the most part, I am happy with this car. In the first year, not a whole lot has happened, just the littlest of things. There I am, right at about 75,000 miles, just over. And as far as drivability is concerned, no issues there to mention. If you haven't seen my earlier videos, when I first got the car from the dealership, the very next drive, I took it straight to a local canyon road of mine, and I broke it in there. And there's some negative thoughts towards that, but honestly, there is no reason for you to limit yourself at 4,000 RPMs. I broke it in hard. I did a full sweep of the RPM all the way to red line, all the way down, and the main goal is to break in and seat your piston rings. As long as you do this with your engine fully at operating temperatures, because that's the main key point. It doesn't matter how you drive your car early on, it matters when you drive your car early on. So if you're going to drive it, and you're going to drive it hard, make sure it's at operating temperatures, and nothing wrong will happen if you pass 4,000 RPMs. Now, if you don't do it, you don't want to go past 4,000 RPMs, that it doesn't mean that you're not going to break in your engine the same way or properly. You can still break it in. You just have to sweep the RPM. The only reason I did it is because I knew that it wasn't going to harm the engine. And also, I'm enjoying the car as it was intended to. So after that, changed my oil right at 1,000 miles. I made sure that I was looking for the oil to make sure, did I see any extra contaminants? Did I see any extra shavings? I didn't see any of that. The oil is clean, for the most part, other than a slight hue of color change. But other than that, everything else was fine, nothing abnormal. And then I took it to the dyno afterwards, just to see what kind of power numbers we were making, and it made healthy numbers. And one note to see if there were an issue with break-in hard, if there was anything wrong for any reason that were to happen, you would definitely see it on the dyno. But I didn't see any low numbers. And again, everything was like it was supposed to be advertised from Toyota as far as the power output, and it felt strong. And on top of that, I don't have any oil consumption, so no consumption whatsoever. I overfill. I changed my oil earlier, actually, as intended, and because of my nature of driving. So if you do want to drive your car hard, change your oil sooner. Be mindful of the miles that you drive. Be mindful of how you drive and where you drive. Because even if you are city driving in traffic, that's still considered harsh conditions, so be mindful of that. And no issues so far. So as you can see, 7,500 miles. I've done 3 track days. I've done a lot of weekend canyon driving. I spend a lot of my time above 5,000 RPMs when I do drive it. I've took it on a road trip, and this car has been great. Hasn't skipped a beat, and I'm very pleased with it. My biggest pet peeve with this car is that every time I start it up, I turn off the cameras because it annoys me while driving. I don't like the assists on. It always gets in my way, and I'd rather not it be on. I know there's other aftermarket solutions to go ahead and disable it completely, and you can plug it in your OBD2 reprogram some settings from factory and get it cleared. I just haven't wanted to spend the money yet. I know some items are like $180 or whatever. I might consider that for the future. I think I'm at that point to where it's probably worth it, just because, you know, save a few more steps every startup if I can. Why not? Although what I've noticed with this banner on the windshield that I put on, I've actually naturally sometimes it'll just disable itself. So I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that would have fixed it. It didn't, but now I'm thinking, what if you just cover the lenses altogether? That might actually do the trick if you don't want any kind of assist from the cameras. Just a thought. One thing I've noticed is that when you adjust volume on the knob over time, it starts to make a funky little creaking noise. I don't know if you can hear that. That started to happen over time. So now what? Future plans with this car. I plan to continue with 8.6 Cup, and I will aim to be in stock class next year once I run through my Continental tires on my stock, not stock, but track wheels. As far as track days, I'm just getting as much experience wherever I can in this car as possible through this year. I'm on the fence of getting an oil cooler, to be honest. I know it's something that a lot of track guys do, but to be honest with you, I haven't seen such extreme temperatures. And before the oil pan, I was still seeing at most 250 to 255 degrees. Once you get into the 260 mark, that's the time that you want to back off. But I haven't approached that, so essentially it's fine. Post oil pan install, my temperatures have still been relatively good. Overall, it's dropped like average a few degrees, just consistently. So because I have the extra capacity. But other than that, I'm kind of on the fence of getting an oil cooler, mainly because I have other cars that I've had oil coolers with, and they tend to overcool, and I really don't like that. And so I have to block it. I have to put something in front of the oil cooler. I have to wait extra long to warm up the car, because I always warm up my cars. It just becomes a little bit inconvenient at that point, and I really don't want to do that with this car. If I can enjoy the daily drivability of it, where it warms up in a reasonable time, keep the creature comforts, I really don't want to do too much with it. I kind of feel the same way with the bucket seats. Sure, if I go with bucket seats, it'll be a lot more efficient as far as me being planted in my seat, and the controls that I feel are that much more heightened because now it's even more precise, being held in one place with your seat. The stock seats, don't get me wrong, they're not that bad. They're actually pretty good, but there are moments to where it would be nice to have a bucket seat, but then I will compromise having heated seats. I like my heated seats, actually. I've never had a car that had that trim before, and it may seem very small, but to me that means the world. I think that's really cool, and there are moments where I've used my heated seats, so I don't know if I want to go switch out seats. So I feel the same way towards an oil cooler. I'm like, will it cool properly on the track? Yes, it'll actually be at very, very reasonable temperatures, but it just takes forever to warm up. I might have to block the oil cooler at some point. Now again, I've seen some other alternatives that are coming out that people are developing. I'm really curious to see what different types of oil coolers that are come out. There are some that are like an internal, if you will, very similar to the quote-unquote stock setup, and it's really a heat exchanger that stock has, which just sits underneath the oil filter, but something of that nature but larger. I've seen a couple of companies that are introducing it, and they're developing it right now. I would be a little bit more intrigued with that, because with those internal coolers you can actually warm up alongside with your coolant if they want to run it that way, or it's just you can manage temperatures. It warms up quicker, cools down quicker, and it's a little bit more convenient. But again, I don't know what that looks like. I'm not sure what they're trying to do. I'm just waiting for that. Now the next thing I do want to do is get rid of that clutch assist spring. I've seen enough people do it, and they say it just feels a night and day difference. And the feeling that they get, it just feels more natural. If you've driven older manual cars, their clutch engagement is is very mechanical. It just feels very in tune. Like when you lift your foot, you can feel the friction zone, and then you release slowly, and then you can feel it grab much more. You don't feel that in this car, and it's because of that silly spring that Toyota put in there. In my opinion, I don't know why they did it. It just makes it easier, I guess, quote unquote, easier with your foot to depress and press, but I don't think it's necessary because it's just, this stock clutch on this car isn't heavy. It's very light. Like it's almost lighter than a Miata, if I dare say this. It's very light. So I would opt for more feel. I personally feel like they did a really great job, Toyota, with making this car as, like, for the price point, the best, the most raw feeling sports car as you can of today's day and age of sports cars. But that little assist spring, that's kind of like doing the opposite. It's almost counterproductive. But I can see why they did it, because maybe for the general public that's getting into a new sports car, that's getting into driving a stick, that's still new to that world, maybe that just makes it a little bit easier for them. But in my opinion, I don't think it was necessary. One thing I do plan on doing is changing the exhaust on this car. I did do the Japanese intake box, and that just doesn't have a carbon filter in it. But it's not a huge change. At some point, I think the factory filter will get dirty, so I'm going to go with an aftermarket filter, most likely AEM. Other than that, this thing makes plenty of engine noise, but as soon as I put that helmet on the track, I can't hear the exhaust anymore, I can't hear the car anymore, so just a little bit more rumble. The goal is to go with the GR Performance exhaust. I already have it, I'm just planning to put it on. I just haven't put it on yet because I've been doing other stuff, focusing there. I just kind of want to feel out the car first before I start throwing too much at it. So I'm at the point to where it could use a little bit more noise. So as quiet as this is, I can barely hear it when it's idling, and I would prefer a little bit more rumble when it's idling, but specifically when I'm on track, I want to ring it out. I want to hear the exhaust. Right now I can't hear anything. It's very subtle. But other than that, future plans are just keep on driving. I will continue to explore doing more track days, more canyon roads. I do want to do more road trips in the future and drive different mountain roads that I haven't visited yet, and all over California. So there's more that I plan to do. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what it's like to drive this Trueno edition after a period of time. So if you are in the market and you happen to find one that's used, maybe this gives you a good idea of where to start looking. Whether they have modified it, whether they haven't, what kind of wear was it like in the interior, how was the owner treating their car, and how did the car respond as far as interior wear, exterior wear, things like that. So hopefully what I've done with this car and what I've shared with you will give you some level of guidance if you are looking. Or doesn't even have to be this particular trim, just any 86 or BRZ. But generally speaking, hopefully this helps you. Thank you for watching. I will share more as I continue on. And look at the description below if you want to look at some of the stuff I've done in the past, because I do have individual folders of whether it's little DIY stuff, whether it's certain things I've modified, whether it's other things I've done with the car. If you're just curious, go ahead and check that out. And I have other folders as well, as far as places I've driven, track days, so on and so forth. So I hope that you enjoy this content, and I'll see you guys next time.